Once you create a hierarchy, you have trouble. You have created trouble. You have created people who have power, and you have created people who have less power or have no power. And the people who have power will never give up power willingly. They will never make it so that people without power can get power. They will never give up control. Once you have power as someone who wanted power, you will never give up power. So that's why hierarchy should not exist, because once you have a hierarchy, you will have people who are itching to get to the top of it, and once they get to the top of it, they will never they will never give it up. Hello, and welcome back to Bri Speaks podcast. My name is Bri Speaks. I am a self-declared intersectionality expert who created the 6 narcissistic social hierarchies of control. The 6 narcissistic social hierarchies of control are patriarchy, capitalism, corporatism, racism, ableism, and religion. Those are the 6 narcissistic social hierarchies that control us all, and we need to deconstruct, get rid of them, and figure out new systems to create a better world for our future. And today, we will be talking about how one narcissistic system led to the other. So the list that I have in order of creation is patriarchy came first, then religion, then classism, which is still capitalism, but like throughout history, classism, which is like the distribution of wealth amongst classes of people, it happened in different ways. So some was like, with gold, when the gold was a monetary system, when land was a monetary system. Now with this paper money, that's the monetary system. So classism covers corporatism. So from the top, patriarchy was first, religion second, classism third, which led to racism. Hello, racism, we're here. Which led to ableism, which led to ageism. And then there are going to be other isms all throughout these, but these are like the big major systems that currently affect us today. And I've had this question a lot of like, which came first, the chicken or the egg, and what's going on, and all these things. And people don't see how one leads to the other, how one not only leads to, but like births the other. The way women give birth to children, and like when you come from like a feminine or a matriarchal mindset, the feminine creates and gives birth to like life. Patriarchy, or the male, it gives birth to systems, and those systems are the opposite of the system that a matriarch or that a feminine entity will create. A feminine entity creates, I don't know how to explain it, but like something, it creates life, it creates something, it creates abundance, it creates something that gives birth to more, where patriarchal systems, they give birth to more things that take. Like women create things that create, men create things that destroy, create things that take, create things that siphon. So that is how narcissism works. Narcissism is the overarching mentality of these systems, the overarching structure of these systems. And what is narcissism? There are a few things that go into narcissism, because a lot of people just assume that narcissism is, you care about how you look. And if you care about how you look, then you're narcissistic. And I'm just like, narcissism is so much deeper than looks. But that is one of the biggest like outward things that is one of the things about narcissism that is always at play, is how does this look, or how do I look to the external world? Because that is what patriarchy, that is what like the masculine energy of the world is an external energy, whereas the feminine energy of the world is an internal energy. It is a darkness, and not in a darkness in like an evil, but darkness in like the womb. When you think of the womb, a place where creation happens, is a dark place where things are created. The ocean, deep, dark in the depth of the ocean there where there's no sunlight. It is in the ocean, and it is dark. Like wherever there is creation, where creation starts, is the moon is the feminine, right? The moon in the ocean. It is darkness. Darkness is where creation. In the Bible, again, I'm not a religious person, and religion is one of my 6 narcissistic social hierarchies of control. But religion and the text of religion does come from truthful stories about throughout history, and then it's been kidnapped and then used for a narcissistic patriarchal control. It's been weaponized essentially. But when you take some of this, like a lot of the story, I don't want to say all. Most of the stories in the Bible have some truth in them, but they have been manipulated to be used as a weapon of control rather than a story of truth. And so when you think of the story of creation itself, it says before anything happened, right? There was darkness, there was nothing, there was which is essentially the womb, and then God said, "Let there be light," and light was the first creation that came from darkness. So all that to say, the masculine is the external version of the feminine, and the feminine is the internal version, which is, it comes from, it's darkness. But like, again, people think dark means evil. No, dark means, it means raw energy, it means raw potential, it means a potential energy, it means it means the beginning before the beginning. So anywho, yeah, so I just wanted to come here to talk about the order of operations so that people can have a better understanding and wrap their heads around what has happened in this world and why we are where we are today. So if we want to go, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, which again, God is a woman. God gave birth. Earth came from the womb of the anyways. So I want to start with the agricultural revolution that started approximately 10,000 years ago. All right. So let's start with the agricultural revolution. The agricultural revolution refers to major shifts in food production, most notably the first Neolithic revolution around 10,000 BCE, which is essentially 10,000 years ago. Okay, so here is what happened to the world, where we came from, and why we're here, and why narcissism has taken over the world and how it has taken over the world. How do we go from what we were, which was a matriarchal / egalitarian hunter-gatherers people who lived one with the earth, one with the animals, were not afraid of animals, spoke to the animals, had spiritual practices that gave us gifts of things like technology, how did we go from this this one with earth, good, loving, empathetic culture of humans across the globe to what we are today, where people are starving in a world where there's more than enough food to feed everyone, where people are sleeping on the street when there's more than enough space for everyone to have a home. But also, I will say, how do we go from a globe of 1 million people to now a globe of 8 billion people? I need people to think about that, how as of 12,000 years ago, humans have been on Earth for the modern Homo sapien has existed for about 300,000 years, okay? So 300,000 years evolving from Africa, from earlier human ancestors that appeared about 2.5 million years ago, with the broader human lineage dating back 6 to 7 million years. So the modern Homo sapien, not Homo, the modern Homo sapien has been on Earth for about 300,000 years. And that was about 1 million of us across the planet. And as of 12,000 years ago, we have went from about 1 million people to 8 billion people. So what happened 12,000 years ago, you ask? Oh, thanks. Thanks for asking. That would be the agricultural revolution. The agricultural revolution, not the industrial revolution that happened here in America, but it was when people not only gained the ability, because people have had the ability to farm much longer than 12,000 years ago. We've been farming essentially since we've been humans, but 12,000 years ago is where farming essentially was industrialized. It was like, it became not something you did to supplement the food that you got from the earth from Mother Nature. Like, it was like you foraged for the wild things in the forest and you got what you needed. And, if you didn't want to be a nomad, you didn't, and like, once that all the crops from that area were used, or winter was coming in that area, so you had to go somewhere south where it was warmer, so there was more food. You would move with the seasons, or you would move with the abundance of resources. But instead of that, humans were like, hey, we don't have to leave. Instead, I can just farm the ground right here. And so then humans started creating settlements where all like people would actually just stay. And so populations started growing when people started farming land and saying, instead of living off of what the land will provide, I will create my own farm and create food for myself, and I will survive the way I feel like I want to survive. And if you want to compare that to the Bible, because you can, it is said slash I say slash I have heard others say that is the like where Eve ate off the tree, where God said, if you eat off this tree of knowledge of right and wrong, then you will feel like you are God, and you will feel like you can make your own decisions, and you feel like God will no longer provide for you, and you will have to till the earth forever. That was the agricultural revolution, where humans decided, I will not depend on the food that the earth gives me. I will not depend on the food that naturally comes from Mother Earth, but I will decide what crops should grow now, and I will decide what crops should grow later. And that was humans taking on the role of God. That was them saying, I won't. Oh, and then if you know about the story of Cain and Abel, during the agricultural revolution, there were basically agriculturalists and there were cattle farmers, like there were cattle ranchers, and the cattle ranchers were basically minding their business when the agriculturalist came and was like, hey, we're running out of room for our vegetables, and so I need this land that you're farming. And then the cattle farmers were like, no, we live here and we have been living here, and we'll just keep living here. And then the agriculturalists were like, oh, well, I'll have to kill you then. I'll have to kill you then. And that is it. And that is when Cain killed his brother Abel, because he was jealous that God didn't accept his agricultural offerings and instead decided to favor the brother who had the ranch. So that is where that story comes from, to my understanding. People think of it as something else, of course. And then the mark of Cain. Yeah, so the people who were agriculturing, they did happen, to my understanding, to be coming from the European area and then coming down into northern Africa, which is where the cattle ranching was happening. And so is Cain, who killed Abel, his brother, white people? Probably. Is the mark of Cain white skin? Possibly. But, hey, the Bible is up to interpretation for yourself. So, anyways, going back to the story here, when we started agriculture and we started saying, not we, because this was a largely European descendant mentality from those people who were coming from Europe down to do the agriculture, who down to say, hey, this land is ours. That came from white people. Like, okay. And if you want to know another story that I've read, and hey, again, these are just stories. Now, prior to this agricultural revolution and Europeans taking over the world, were stories the main ways that we kept in contact, that we shared information, that we evolved as a human species? Sure. So do I trust the stories that have been passed down for generations? I do. And so the following story that I'm about to tell you, is it true? I can't verify, but it's a story. So here we go. There was a time where the world was full of only melanated people. And at one point, there was a black mama, and this is, hey, so we want to blame the world sucking on black women? Don't, but try not to after the story. But here's the story. So there was a black mama who had an albino child, and this child was, it was albino, had no skin, no pigmentation. So it is said that the mama was like, this is not my kid. And so left the kid essentially to pass away because she thought that the kid was defective. And, but the kid was found by wolves, and he was raised by wolves, this albino child. And so he grew up with wolves, and wolves were his family, and then went on to find other humans at some point and reproduce. And that is how the white species came to be. So, so that is the story that explains, one, why white people hate black people, because it is a deep mother wound of feeling abandoned by Black people, the first mothers. And then 2, it explains why white people are obsessed with dogs. And then they say dogs are a man's best friend or what have you. And it's because they were raised by wolves. Hey, again, these are just stories. These are just stories. Take with them what you will. Oh, and then it also, so because that child was raised with wolves, it was raised like without human empathy, I guess. And then also prior to that, or also the descendants of that child had to deal with like the Ice Age or what have you. And that here, I'll put up a picture of the book that told this story here. It talks about the origin of white people and why they are so like cannibalistic and lack empathy, and it talks about how they came from essentially an ice age or ice age era where they had to eat one another to survive, and that kind of mentality of like, they call it dog eat dog, but like human eat human. That mentality came from them coming from a place of lack, coming from a place that didn't have abundant resources, came from a place where it was either, consume your best friend or be consumed by the wilderness. And so they disconnected from spirit, they disconnected from themselves because they had to do that in order to survive in the way that they were. This book, the background of it gave this timeline that after the wolves and after the first white person was mutated and born, and their descendants had this ice age happen, and then those descendants had those were the ones who came in and did the agricultural revolution, who ended up unaliving all the people who were minding their business, doing their cattle farming. And then that began the great takeover of, well, I wouldn't say of Europe, because before 500 years ago, that was really when Europe started taking over, is when they got access to other people and other cultures and other knowledge. Because before that, they were a failing state. They were, they didn't have plumbing. They had cholera everywhere, which is a dysentery. It's a bacterial disease that comes from drinking unclean water. They had, the Black Plague, the Spanish Plague. They had, like everything was bad in Europe. Only the kings and queens were fine, and then there were a bunch of peasants and serfs, and they couldn't even sail. They didn't even know how to sail, you guys. And then they met some Africans, and the Africans were like, "Are y'all good?" Well, actually, the Moors, which were Black people, took over and enslaved some of Europe. And, that is where they taught them how to bathe properly, even though, to my understanding, they still struggle with that concept. Hey, just again, to my understanding, it could be a stereotype. I'm sure some Caucasian people bathe regularly and every day and well and use actual things to scrub the dead skin from their bodies, but I know some of them don't. I know there's a significant portion of them who like to rub soap on their body when they get in the tub and rinse it off, and they feel like they're good to go. And then there may or may not be a smell of wet dog. But hey, anywho's, I've gone too far. So our timeline is humanity comes from darkness. Humanity is doing great for 300,000 years. Well, really for 200,088 years. And then white people learn to farm, and then they take over the Mesopotamian region, which is essentially, again, I'll try to put a map up here somewhere, but if you know geography, there's northern Africa. There's like a little connector point of like ocean and like couple of pieces of land, and then there is Europe. Then you go into Europe. So that is that. And so when agriculture 12,000 years ago began to populate everywhere, you now have people who are claiming ownership to land. And that is a key transition factor from what it was before. Before, when you went to America, like what is now called America, but it was like the Native Americans, the South Americans, Native people of Africa, Native people of Asia, of India, of anywhere else in the world, basically, people knew that we are one with the world is one with us, we are not different, and we cannot own land. The land was here before us, and the land will be here after us. You cannot own it. And so that is how people thought before, this mentality of, okay, now that I'm farming this land is mine, no one else can have it, which means everything on this land, above this land, under this land are also mine, including natural resources like this this river with water, these trees with food, these plants with foods and herbs and medicinal properties, like all these things that are on the land naturally, that you did nothing for, are now apparently yours. And so when you have that shift of this belongs to everyone, we're all stewards of this land, to this belongs to me, in order to, so now you're blocking access to these resources from people who need it, and you're saying that you have it. And when people are desperate for resources, that is when the fighting begins. So if when people started, when they decided to block access to resources and hoard resources, that is where the need for stronger masculine, this is where the need for men came in to ward off other men who were trying to regain access to the resources that they likely had access to before the ownership of land was invented. And this is where now you have men fighting, because I'm sure women wanted no parts in this crap. And now, since men are the bigger ones who are, protecting the land, it goes from protecting the land. It was never protecting the land, and it's never been about protection. It's always been about resource guarding. And there is a distinct difference between protection, which you do out of love, you do out of care, you do because you want someone or something to be safe. Someone pointed this distinction out, that there's like that men don't protect, they guard, they resource guard. And I was like, I thought that was a fantastic distinction to be made, because women protect. We protect our children. When you think of someone who fiercely protects something, you automatically think of a mother bear, a mama rabbit, a mama a whale, like any mother of any species. When it comes to her children, that is protection. That is, I will lay down my life in order to keep this person safe. That is protection. But men, they resource guard, because the difference between protecting, when you love someone so much you will protect them, you want no harm to come to them from anyone, including yourself. When you are guarding a resource, you don't want anyone else to use or have that resource except for you. And men, they guard women and children so that other men cannot have them, but not so that they can protect them, because if that was the case, then men would be protecting women from themselves. But we know that the highest rates of domestic violence and abuse comes from men to their own partners. We know that the most dangerous time in a woman's life is when she is pregnant, or directly postpartum, after she just had the baby, and that is the highest time where her intimate partner will commit violence against her and unalive her. We know that the highest cause of death for women who are pregnant or postpartum is their intimate partner. We know that 90% of all violent crimes in the globe across the world are created by men. Men do not protect, they resource guard. And I wanted to make that distinction, because that's what they've been doing for the last 12,000 years. For 12,000 years, they've been guarding resources so that other men can't have them, because they want them to use them for themselves. And so this is where the start of the patriarchy begins. I know that took me a very long time to get there, but this is how patriarchy began, when men started resource guarding and women could not fight back for whatever reason. That is how the patriarchy came into play. It's like men have the power, now men have the resources, because they really physically took it over in order to guard from other resources. And I can imagine that there were women who have children, and it is in their best interest to stand behind the man who has the resources, who has access to the resources, in order to protect her children. And that is how children have always, from the beginning of time, really, from the beginning of this agricultural revolution, from the beginning of patriarchy, have been used as a weapon to subjugate women, a weapon to use women, a weapon to contain women, because without children, women are much more free to risk their lives for themselves. They're much more free to stand up against unjust and unfair systems. They're much more free to try to take down patriarchal systems, because they have nothing. You don't like. It's like when you go into the CIA or something, you cannot become a spy if you have a family. You cannot put your life at risk properly and secretly if you have someone that they can then use against you as leverage. Because I will throw my own life down the toilet if I feel like it, but it is much harder for me to throw someone else's life, because and I feel like that's a big difference between men and women. Is women will do anything will let anything happen to themselves, domestic abuse, violence, whatever. But then when it comes to their babies, you're not going to hurt my baby. That is where most women will draw the line, which is unlike men, where it's like they're like, nothing will happen to me, but you can take the woman, take the child. Like men, when you watch men who are truly afraid and in distress, the last thing on their minds is protection, y'all. They are protecting themselves, but they will throw others into the flames. Like the amount of videos I've seen, and maybe this is my algorithm, but the amount of videos that I have seen of men hiding behind strollers, hiding behind women whenever they see like a dog coming to attack, or like whenever there's some sort of fear, the way that they get behind the women and children versus standing up in front of them. Okay, have I seen some where, the man runs into battle or runs into the fire or whatever? Sure. But those are the minority. Those are the minority of the videos I've seen. Again, my algorithm might be biased, but I also think about this story I read by, what was her name? I don't know if Google is being changed for the far right agenda or what right now, but every time I'm looking up these like things, I can't find them at this moment, and it's really making me upset because they're trying to make me look crazy on this internet. But so I can't remember the woman's name, but of course the story is what I remember, and it impacted me so greatly and so heavily. So let me know if someone in the comments, if you know the story I'm talking about and who wrote it, so that we can give our Black ancestor queen her rightful flowers. But the story went as follows, and I will never ever say it as good as she wrote it. But I'm gonna give you my best summary. There was a this was around the civil rights era, and Black people just got the right to vote. And this Black woman goes to register for votes, and of course she is when Black people first got civil rights, most of them were sharecropping. So she lived on a farm and she was a sharecropper, and so she comes back from registering her vote. Her essentially the enslaver who was there, the owner of the land, he heard what she was doing, or heard it from a buddy or a friend, and was like, hey, you Black, all the words, I don't want you to vote, so you go down there right now and you go unregister to vote. And then of course she said, no, I have the right to vote and I am going to vote. And of course, he then threatened violence, and she, of course, doubled down, because she was never if you went to go vote 1965-ish, you knew what you were risking. You knew that there would be white narcissistic rage that came after. You knew that these Caucasian people would be angry, jealous. They would feel like they're losing power. And so they're going to do anything they can to get that power back, including violence, because that's their favorite tactic. And so the long story short of it is, he then got a Black person, another sharecropper, and gave him the whip and said, you whip her and then I'll whip her next. And if you don't do it, I'll whip you both. And the Black man, instead of saying, then you're going to have to whip us both, which was the right answer, he decided to take the whip and then whip the Black woman. And then of course the white man came and then whipped her again. So this Black woman got 2 whippings, while this Black man got none, and possibly got rewarded for pandering to white people and whiteness and laying down his and giving them to a white man, and he was probably rewarded for that. But stories like that, they just show me how weak men can be. Not saying all men are, but there is a significant majority, especially when it comes to you see these men have to deal with period cramps whenever the period cramp simulator is used on them. Like, the amount of pain that these men are not willing to undergo or withstand in order to fight for their own rights and freedoms, nonetheless another's, it is not something I would depend on. I would not put my life in the hands of a man. I just wouldn't. I have a husband, and I trust him to keep me and my son and our son secure and safe. But will I not have myself trained in some sort of hand-to-hand combat? No. Will I not have myself trained in how to use weaponry? No. I would not give up my ability to defend myself. I would never outsource my safety to a man. Really, to anyone, but specifically to a man. If once you outsource your safety to a man, you are more likely, statistically speaking, to become hurt by that same man than you are to be safe at the hands of that man. Just again, I'm speaking statistics. I'm a statistics girly. I love me statistics and probability. I took the class in college. It changed my life on how I see numbers. And so when you just like I gamble better, like when you know statistics, you know what is likely to happen and what is not likely to happen. And I do stocks better. Like when you understand statistics, like what is going to happen statistically speaking, not based on your feelings, not based on your anecdotal experiences, not based on your mama, your sister, your cousin, which your friend down the street at the barbershop, the hair salon told you. Like when you know numbers and how they work, you do not leave anything up to faith. And so because I know how numbers work, statistically speaking, I will never outsource my safety to a man, period, ever. So this is how patriarchy began. And this is how I can imagine that women at that time didn't immediately overthrow it because of the benefits and the safety that it got for their children, not even just for themselves, but for their children. Okay, and so now once men are in charge, the problem now is that, again, still women have this inherent power. We have this inherent power of giving birth. That's like the biggest one, is we control the population, and we control the labor force. We control how our children are raised. We control the morals that they'll have when they're raised, the values that they have. And men don't like that. Men who are seeking power and control cannot have that. And thus, as we said in the beginning, how have people cultivated cultures? How have people passed down knowledge and information over time? Storytelling is how we do that. And how did men decide to get women to pass down their stories? Dun, da, da, da. We introduce our second narcissistic hierarchy of this timeline, religion. Then religion comes into play, and they sucked out the power that women have and said, no, this story where everything was created from like the womb, from darkness, and then that birthed light and that birthed people. That was a man. That was a man. Doesn't matter that for 300,000 years we have looked at the creator as a male female entity, a masculine feminine entity that was like what is her name? Mawu Lisa. I have a book on African spirituality. I'm not gonna give you the name because then you'll like go buy it, and that's fine, but I'm gonna see if I can talk to the author first, if I can get in contact with her, to see what I can shake it back, see if we can have some sort of partnership, because I love this book and I want to recommend it to everyone in the world. But if I could get paid to do that, although I hate capitalism, I still live in a capitalist world, and until we can deconstruct all of it, I need money to survive, and so I'm not going to shortchange myself. But in this book, it talks about Mawu Lisa, which is the traditional cosmic power, and that cosmic power was Mawu was a woman, and then Lisa was actually the man. But it was essentially a yin and yang. It was a yin and yang entity that was the creator of all. No one before 12,000 years ago in the Bible thought that God was a man. Like no one. Like for hundreds of thousands of years. Like because that doesn't even make sense. Y'all, we've been bamboozled. So anyways, so many of them believed in God as a male-female entity, and then others thought of God as just a woman, but it was never a man. And that is a silly thing to think. And so that is why we have, that's how religion was created. It was a way to take true stories, change them and flip them, put a man on top, make the woman subjugate the woman, make her feel like she has no power, make her feel like her power is outside of her, make her feel like she can't do anything without the permission of a male authority figure, a male god, and then be that male figure, be the man, and then the god, or just like straight to the god, but like either way, and then that she needs a husband, that she's nothing without a husband, that her God-given right is to get a husband, her God-given right is to be a mother, and those were her purposes in life. Like no matter how much intelligence she has, no matter how much what her voice is, what good of a writer she is, how spiritual she is, how in touch she is with nature, like none of those intuitions, none of those things matter. It is how close are you to your husband, how many babies do you have, how loyal are you to your man, how much do you question your man, do you turn off your brain? Like religion, it literally told everyone to turn off your brain, don't think about what I'm telling you, and just believe. That is narcissism at its finest. Is a hypnotic spell. It is how you put people to sleep. Everyone says, stay woke, be woke, but these are the systems. People don't understand. Like, people say stay woke. People say stay woke, but I don't think people understand what it means to be asleep. And I don't think people understand what is making them asleep and how to wake up. And I think that is a good way to frame my entire channel. Is like, how can people be awakened from the narcissistic spell that is all of these systems. All of these systems put us to sleep and make us say, like, literally turns off our brains, but also turns off our connection to our subconscious, because our subconscious is the one that's like yelling in the void. Our feminine energy, which is the subconscious, which is like the moon, the ocean, the darkness, the inside, is screaming at all of us. But because it's inside, our souls, our spirits, and we're told that anything feminine, anything in touch with your emotions, anything in tune with your spirit is bad or evil, or to not to be questioned, but it is to be questioned, because it could be the devil talking to you guys. Anything that comes from inside of you and doesn't come directly from the Bible, it could be a demon talking to you. So don't trust yourself, and anything you think, run it past your pastor, and he'll let you know if it's a good thought to have or not. So leave your husband because he's abusive? No, bad thought. Don't listen to that. Whoever told you that was Satan. That was Satan for sure. Your husband's cheating on you. Forgive him. God said, forgive him. He's beating on you. He'll change. You just wait. God said, wait on your husband, and he will reward you with a kind and loving husband who changes his entire being to be a better person for you. Has he done it in the last 20 years? No, but that's okay. You just keep waiting. It'll get there eventually. All right, so that is where religion comes into play. And so once you have this religion and this religious class of people, these people who have now collected like really spiritual energy, spiritual resources, who have now rightfully claimed their divine given right at this top of the world, this hierarchy, right? Because and I tell everyone, once you create a hierarchy, you have trouble. You have created trouble. You have created people who have power, and you have created people who have less power or have no power. And the people who have power will never give up power willingly. They will never make it so that people without power can get power. They will never give up control. Once you have power as someone who wanted power, you will never give up power. That's why hierarchy should not exist, because once you have a hierarchy, you will have people who are itching to get to the top of it. And once they get to the top of it, they will never give it up. They will never give it up. No matter what it takes. This is why you have all these narcissistic freaking boomers in Congress, because once they get elected, they're never giving up their seat. This is why you have so many millionaires and billionaires who are hoarding all the wealth, and they have bribed all of our politicians, because once they get enough money to be able to bribe people to get more money, all of that is power, and they're never going to give it up. They're never going to be altruistic. They're never going to be chivalrous. And again, I never want this to be mistaken with these people being a representation of humanity, because the narcissist likes to make everyone think that everyone is narcissistic and everyone thinks the way they are, and that everyone is selfish and that everyone is greedy. But no, these are a small select group of people. These are people, again, we'll get to racism in a little bit, but usually white, usually male. And if you want to say, I don't want to say all men are narcissistic, although when you live in a patriarchy, narcissists come from being raised in a environment where you have the attributes that the hierarchy wants you to have. So if the patriarchy puts men at the top, the system patriarchy puts men at the top and then puts women at the bottom. If you are a man raised in the patriarchy, you are much more likely to become narcissistic, because the patriarchy does not hold you accountable. The patriarchy rewards you for doing nothing. For literally being born a man, you will be rewarded. Narcissism is bred from people getting things that they didn't work for. The moment you have to work for something, it creates a different sort of appreciation, a different gratitude. It creates empathy for others who have worked hard. But when you get something with very, very little work attached to it, it makes you feel like you deserve all these things without doing work. You think that creates entitlement. And so where there's a hierarchy that puts a person, a certain archetype of person, as ideal, and then you put people through that system, the people who have the archetype of ideal are much more likely to be narcissistic. So when you look at all of these systems that my 6 narcissistic social hierarchies of control, patriarchy, you're going to have more narcissistic men. Capitalism, you're going to have more narcissistic rich people. Corporatism, you're going to have more narcissistic CEOs. Racism, you're going to have more narcissistic white people. Ableism, you're going to have more narcissistic able-bodied people. Religion, you're going to have more narcissistic priests, more narcissistic pastors, more narcissistic popes. Like those, all the people who you find out, oh my God, they were all touching diddling kids. And they're all at the top of these hierarchies. Why are y'all? I'm just like, why is everyone surprised? Why? Like, I'm sitting here, y'all, and I will call myself woke AF because I'm a systems thinker. I think about everything from a system level. And when you think like that, I was just like, lucky me, I guess. I was born thinking this way. And so I have always been like, this is weird. And no one else, because no one else looks at these deeper rooted problems. So if you wake up, when you wake up from these systems and you see what they are you see them for what they are, I guess I'm telling you, sorry in advance, you're going to be isolated from society because most people in society are asleep, y'all. Most people are going throughout their everyday lives feeling like, everything that is negative is either the person's fault as an individual or a coincidence or, just like a smaller outcome. Like then they see the problem, people will see the problem, but they will never ever see the root of the problem. And that is the problem, is people think that all of these individual problems, like, oh, people are not nice. They don't think of them as evil, as evil, awful people from the depths of their soul. Or like, oh, that, people are sick and they don't think the healthcare system is evil. They see, oh, capitalism is not working for some people and they don't see capitalism as evil. Like when I say narcissistic, I also do mean evil, if I'm being honest, because narcissism is like, it is the lack of empathy that you need in order to hurt and harm and subjugate slews of people for your own personal gain and not feel a god dang thing about it. That is evil. Like, I don't know what else you can say, what else you want to call it, but that's an evil thing. That's an evil person. And these systems are evil. They are like, that's it. So, all right, I know people are going to hang up on me at this point. So once we've told all these stories to all these women to get them to no longer believe in themselves, no longer believe they have power, no longer to believe they have the ability to make decisions for themselves and their children like they have been doing for the last 288,000 years, we have figured out a way to collect resources, to systemically pass resources to this religious class, this spiritual class, which is really a political class, because once you put morality over a group of people and you say these are the things that you should and shouldn't do, like you should get married, you should have kids, etc., you should like bend your soul, yourself to the rules of this society. That is, you now have a government. So you have someone governing you. That is, people say religion, state, separation between church and state. There has never been a separation between church and state. From the moment these religions were created, well, I don't want to say created because I know Christianity was created in Ethiopia. And when I only talked to one, but I talked to one Orthodox Ethiopian Christian, and they were okay because they have books in their Bible that actually have women as leaders, women as like intelligent people, women as like people who are not subjugated. Like, when I was looking through Christianity from the actual origin, people who created Christianity, I didn't hate it. I don't want any sort of spiritual system over top of me telling me what I can and can't do, what I should and shouldn't do, what's right and what's wrong. So I'll never go into any sort of organized religion, but I do understand that there are people in this world who prefer that sort of guidance and structure. And so I'm not gonna shame. I'm not shaming anyone. Nah, I'm shaming narcissists. Narcissists are the bad people. Like, it don't matter what color. You can be any color and be a narcissist. Yeah, so point a finger. I'm never gonna point a finger at, well, I'm gonna point a finger at whoever I want to point a finger to, and my biggest finger is pointing to narcissists and narcissistic people. And then after that, if you happen to be in a subgroup that has a higher concentration of narcissists, like men and white people, then hey, you're going to catch some strays, and that is not your fault as an individual, but that is the truth of the matter. Like, and I deal with facts here. I deal with facts. with a sprinkle of my opinion. So that is that. If you got a problem with it, you don't have to be here. And if you have a different opinion, feel free to leave it in the comments. Like, I'm not going to stop you from typing. Will I block you if it's crazy? I might. I will. I probably will, because I don't deal with narcissistic people. And the problem is people who disagree with me are typically narcissists. Oh my God. and then they always they turn around and call me a narcissist, because the narcissist's favorite tactic is reverse victimization. Is, if you ever heard of Darvo is the narcissist's favorite tactic. Deny, yes. Deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender is the manipulative tactic used by perpetrators of wrongdoing, especially abusers, to deflect blame by denying their harmful actions, attacking the person confronting them, and then positioning themselves as the real victim, making the actual victim seem like the aggressor. It's their favorite tactic. They've been using it for 500 years. White people have been reverse victimizing the crap out of the world for 400 years, 400, 500 years. And I'm just like, I'm not a dummy. I'm not a dummy. The one thing I'm not a dummy. So you're not gonna get me. You can call me a narcissist all you want to, but I know that I would never hurt anyone for my own personal benefit. I know that I would never not feel guilty for having loads and loads of money that came from off the back of the sufferings of others. I know that you could not give me $1 million to hurt and harm a person who does not deserve it. Now, if you say $1 million to like take out another narc, to take out a couple of narcs, hey, you could pay me less. You could pay me less. And as long as there are no legal consequences, hey, I'll do what I gotta do. I'll take out a couple of vampires. Call me Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I never even watched that show, but I'll take them out. So anyways, so once these spiritual people they've collected power through their new government, created classism. Now that created people who have a lot of resources and people who do not have a lot of resources. And specifically, since the subjugation of women through religion, a big part of the people who didn't have money were women. And women, no matter how subjugated we are not going to, at the end of the day, like once women get upset about something, something's going to change. Something is going to change, because women, we are not going to sit around and let our kids starve. That's the thing. And so the people who were hoarding all the resources, who had now created this morality around having a wife or a marriage, they have to appease their women somehow. They can't, just have all their women upset and mad all the time. Although they can, try to beat them into submission, but that can only work for so long. And so they gave them the lower class. They said, hey, women, I know you hold no actual political and economic power, but as long as you get married, and have kids, you will be fine. And you won't be one of the poors. You won't be one of those poor people over there. But the problem is with any hierarchy is when you have a lot of resources and wealth and power accumulated to a bunch of people at the top, you will always have a bunch of people at the bottom who don't have anything. And when you don't have anything, you don't have anything to lose. And so the bottom class will begin revolting. And so that's exactly what happened, especially in Europe. The servant class or the serpent class started saying, hey, this is, and the rich people, they saw that. They were just like, man, these poors are really, they're getting kind of rowdy. We have to do something. And so what the narcissist will always do is triangulate, which is, how can I get these people who I am victimizing to believe that I'm not victimizing them? How can I get them to believe that it's their fault? How can I get them to believe that, that they can change their situation, even though they can't? I know. Let me introduce a third party into the system. This is how it's a triangle. And that third party will usually be one of two characters in the narcissist story. It'll either be a flying monkey, which is someone who the narcissist also has control over and will lie and tell that person's stories, especially stories about their victim, so that the flying monkey will then do their bidding and tell the victim, hey, you're overreacting, or hey, they really didn't mean it, or all these gaslighting tactics, devalidation tactics that make the victim feel like maybe it's you, maybe it's me, maybe I am the problem. But the other person will be getting they will get a worse victim. They will get a worse victim and then treat you like not as bad. And so then you have it in your mind, okay, well, it could be worse. And so I'm going to just accept what I have. And that is what they will do. And that is what they did. And that is they invented Black people. Now racism enters the chat. Racism is like, dang, all these whites enslaved peasants they're really tripping, y'all. So how can we get them to stop being so rowdy? Oh, let's introduce another subclass and we'll call them Black and introduce the transatlantic slave trade. Kaboom. And now we have the kidnapping of Black people from Africa for the next, few hundred years. We don't have to go through that, but that is racism. That's how racism was created. It was a white man that said, hey, yeah, nah, just give me the Black ones. Because like slave trading was happening amongst all races at this time. But there was a white man who was like, if I just get the darkies. I'm sorry, y'all. When I put myself in the mind of a racist, I start saying crazy stuff because this is the stuff that they say. It's stuff that they think. It's like when I put on my empathy hat and I step into the mind of the devil, I get carried away. I'm sorry. Anyway, so that is how they created racism. They needed to appease the lower classes. They needed to stop the lower classes, and the people who were in the higher places of position wanted to create a system that was easily externally identifiable, because again, when narcissists think, all they think about is what they can see. They don't think about what they feel. They don't think about how other people feel. They don't think about what you can't see. This is why white people didn't believe in germs for the longest time. They thought people were dying because there was bad air, not because they didn't wash their hands. It was like, if y'all ever heard of miasma, look up miasma. If I studied public health, so it's a hilarious story from a public health lens. It's like these people thought they were dying because the air was bad, and it's like, no, you are drinking water right beside the place that you poop, and so there is there's cholera in your water, and you're drinking poop water, and now you're sick and dying. It's not because because the air is bad, but they were like, invisible germs, witch. You witch, burner at the stake. They did not believe in invisible germs, y'all. So anyways, they don't like narcissists. I don't want to say just white people, but narcissists in general, they do not believe in things they cannot see. They really don't. Like, it's just like surface level. It is a very masculine energy. It is an external energy. And masculine does not mean bad, but it means external. I can't explain that from a spiritual lens. I can't. Like, again, spirituality is like things you can't see, is things that you feel. And other languages do a really good job of having words and phrases and verbiage that describes feelings or experiences or emotions. But the English language doesn't have that. And so I'm sorry, I can't help you. I can't communicate I can't communicate what the masculine is and how it means external, but you know what? Just a different video for a different day. Yeah. So that is racism. So then, now that we have racism all across the world and all across the globe, and we are valuing people, especially based on the color of their skin, if they're religious, their gender, but we are valuing people based on their ability to work. If you are a good slave, right? And if you're light skinned, you're in the house, but if you work really hard, you're great. If you're dark skinned, you're outside. Yeah. But if you work really hard, you're great. Well, not great. It's great as you can be as a Black person in this day and age. And so, but if you cannot work, then you are worth less. Then your value goes down. And now we introduce ableism. And that's not to say that ableism, wasn't a thing before that. I got to look into the history of ableism a little bit more. But so now we're getting into this part. So the first patriarchy led to religion, led to classism, led to racism. That's a very that's not even that's real. Those are facts. Ableism. I know ableism, they would say if a child is born a certain way, then it's because they have some sort of demon inside of them, all this stuff. But they would still, I don't know. I feel like sometimes they would hide them in the back room or what have you, but it was they still respected their humanity. I do feel like before racism and then ableism as a thing, people who had disabilities were still respected as humans. But with not with narcissism, any narcissistic system or narcissist, it comes with the dehumanization and soulization. I want to say like soul, because we're going to get to animals in a little bit, but it's like dehumanization, but it's more than just being human. It's like when you're within the human species, it is how can I dehumanize other humans to make them not human, or like make any hurt or harm that I do to them justified because they are less valuable of a human than I am. And then it goes further than that, obviously, when you get to other animals that are not human. Once slavery and racism is there is this need to prove yourself by the amount of work you can do. If you have the mental and physical capacity to work, you have value. And if you don't, you are worth less. And I think that permeated throughout as a culture throughout, especially in the United States, where you're supposed to work, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and you're supposed to, be a self-made independent person. That American culture, like ableism, spread. If you cannot work, you are not worth. And so that's ableism. And that only introduces ageism. Ageism is children. It's like if you do not have the mental and physical capacity to work as an adult, then you are worth less. And that means and if you are worth less from the narcissist mind, you are able to be exploited and taken advantage of. And so now we are exploiting and taking advantage of children. And this could be, if you will look at child labor laws, which was happening really in Europe even before slavery, when like we're talking about like when they were enslaving the Irish. White people have never respected children. They have never respected children as human beings with rights and feelings and thoughts and autonomy. Like white people have always looked at children as tools to be used or handbags to be shown off, but never as people to be respected. But that's the thing. They don't look at people as people to be respected. They look at people as resources to be used. And when you look at other humans as resources to be used, including the ones within your own culture or ethnic group, you're only going to have exploitation. It's just going to come out in different forms. It will be exploitation of the women, exploitation of the children, exploitation of the poor, or the poor that you created, or exploitation of anyone in any sort of way that you can figure out how to exploit them. That is the narcissistic mind. It's like, how can I exploit these people for whatever they've got, be it land, resources, mind, body, spirit, that's a narcissistic, that's crazy. That is crazy. And white people make it seem like everyone thinks that way. And it's like, no one thinks that way but y'all. If I see another group of people, I approach them with curiosity, with respect, with appreciation, with what can I learn from these people? How can I bring joy to these people? How can I trade? How can I interact? How can I find a mutually beneficial relationship with these other human beings? It is not how can I use, abuse, and exploit. So that's where ageism comes from. It's like, if you can't do everything that I can do, if you're not bigger and stronger than me, then you can't stop me from doing whatever I want to do. That's a narcissistic mind point of view. That's why we have Trump right now trying to say, oh, I'm going to take Greenland because who's going to stop me? Because he feels like he controls the biggest, strongest military in the world. So it's like, I can do whatever I want. He's a narcissist. He is the perfect example of a narcissist, of someone who has always been given what they wanted, never been held accountable, never had to work hard for anything, has never done anything in a proper way, but still feels like they are entitled to get whatever they want. That is how you breed a narcissist. And so that brings me to my last point, which is how I think about animals in this whole thing. Because as someone who, has been studying narcissism for quite some time now, I realize that the same way that, white people don't respect any person of color, but especially Black people, and that when a Black person, says something out their mouth, they don't believe it until it comes from a white person. And then the same thing when men do that. It's just like they don't respect women as people. And when something comes out of a woman's mouth, they're just like, wow, look at her. She has things to say, I guess. And then when it comes out of a man's mouth, it's like, wow, this is so smart. This is so profound. In the same way that white people, whenever they're talking to people who come from a different country and you have English as a second or third or fourth language, white people will see them and say, oh, that person is stupid because they don't know how to speak English, when really they are learning their second or third or fourth language, making them extremely intelligent, but they don't see that because they don't speak the same language. I had the download, if you really want to call it that, like I had a spiritual download that was like, nah, that's the same thing with animals. Like animals are souls that are having a physical experience as whatever animal they're here as, but they have the same spiritual, physical, like mental, like they have the same capacities as humans. It shows up differently. The same way that we would speak different languages from different countries, animals, they I'm not, again, it's like when you have a spiritual into knowing, it doesn't come with words. So I'm trying to explain it, but it's essentially like while the human experience is one experience, like if you come back as a dog or a cat or a snake or a hippo or a rhino, it is not that those are lesser experiences, but it is just a different experience. Like you're coming as a cat, and so you'll have the experience of agility and nocturnal vision and like all this stuff. But that doesn't mean you're not connected to the divine in the same way. It doesn't mean that you don't have spiritual feelings and intuition. It doesn't mean that you can't communicate with other living life beings. It's just you do it differently. But we all have a soul, and so I figured that out. And I have been conditioned, as we all have been, to be afraid of animals and particularly things like snakes and spiders. And my husband, he has a snake, and I've never been like, I was afraid of him very much when I first, I'm like, what the heck, a snake? That's crazy. Because that's what we've been told. If we, once again, I've looked up the origin of snakes and how they actually do represent feminine and how, they represent the recycling of life. Like snakes are deeply spiritual creatures when it comes to like ancient spiritual knowledge. But the fact that they have been so demonized, which y'all listen, in the narcissistic world, everything is upside down. So anything that is demonized, like women, like children, like snakes, spiders, or probably, I don't know, like sharks. I don't know anything. Like, I don't really know anything about sharks, but like anything that is demonized by the narcissistic West, it's probably an amazing, wonderful, spiritually incredible thing, and they are wanting you to steer as far away from it as possible. Same thing I learned about astrology. So it's just like, no, astrology, y'all, once you learn about not like your sun sign and your moon sign, like though when you pull out those charts, like those birth charts, and you go through it with a real astrologist, like someone who has studied the movement of the planets and they've studied history and they know the cycles, they know the rotation, they know the vibration, and they know the human behavior, like the people who know, they always say millionaires don't use astrologists and fortune tellers, billionaires do, because it is once y'all, and I was looking it up in the Bible, and again the Bible has some truths in it, but a lot of those truths have been turned upside down, and the way that the Bible steers you away from astrology and divination and fortune telling and all of that stuff, and it's like, and it demonizes it, and it says you better not even look that way. I'm just like, oh, then that's exactly what I need to be looking at. And it literally called it forbidden knowledge. And I was just like, so you admit that it's knowledge. You didn't say it's fake. You didn't say it's not real. You said, don't look at it, which I'm like, okay, so that's exactly what I should do. And I did. And once I did, I'm just like, oh, yeah, nah, they don't want us to know this. They don't want us to know that, like, the billionaires know exactly what's happening. They know why everyone is having this mass awakening. When they say we're moving into the era of Aquarius, that's not fake. Like when you, like, we just came from the Aries of Pisces, which is like the dream era, which is like the martyr era, which is like, Jesus died for our sins, is very religious, like all of that cult stuff that happened, all of these narcissistic hierarchies that have been created over the last 500 years, which was the age of Pisces. Which is like, when you looked at the age of Pisces, it described the entire everything that was those last 500 years. And now we're moving into the age of Aquarius, which is one, the age of technology. And then two is the age of clarity. It is the age of direct downloads from source to the people. It is the age of the awakening. It is the age of seeing, like, of shared truth and understanding. And once you realize, like, that is the world that we're moving into, that is why now everyone is starting to wake up from these narcissistic ways, is because the vibration of the world is shifting to one of knowledge and one of spiritual truths and downloads. And so now more and more people are getting these these direct downloads from source, and the billionaires are going nuts over it, and they're doing everything to push AI so that they can keep control. But it's like, it's going to work for a significant amount of the world's population, but there's but a significant amount of the population, like, they are going to wake up. We are going to wake up, because it is just like, it is that is the time we are in within the planetary rotation of the history of the world. Like the same way your life is a trajectory, your life is a snippet of of a greater, like, it is, I don't know how to explain it, but like, it is I would call it almost like a derivative of a bigger thing, and that bigger thing is a derivative of a bigger thing, and that bigger thing is a derivative of a bigger thing. So your life is a like, the way you can be born a Cancer. Gosh, you guys, it's so hard to explain spiritual knowings. It is because, like, it's just like, you know, these things, but they come to you as knowings, so you can't explain them. It's like there are not words. You can't put words to what the knowledge God gave you. It's just like I can't explain that. Like, an epiphany is a really good word, I think, to explain maybe the feeling of like that aha moment of like, oh my God, like I understand it now. Like I get it when things just when something finally just clicks and you have an epiphany of like of understanding, of knowledge, of knowing. That is like a spiritual download, and I've been having more and more and more of those. But it's just like, here I am, unable to explain them. So that sucks. But I am trying to say that these last 400 years are a small snippet, and it was a small, I don't even want to call it a small snippet, but like it was a small part of the story of humanity, and the story of humanity is a small part of the story of Earth. And so while it feels like the last 400 to 500 years was like a very long, 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 long time of awfulness and suffering, it was like a year in the span of the Earth's history. And we'll probably have another narcissistic, spin around eventually. But it helps me to understand that it's not like a cause and effect thing, but it's like these are things that are going to happen kind of no matter what. And you can help the process along, or you can hurt the process, or you can take advantage of what's happening. But it is like things that are like what's going to be is kind of what it is. Eh, what will be is what will be, and what it will be is going to be that. And so I'm just happy to be experiencing the great awakening. I can't wait until I reincarnate the next time, and we're like, when we're fully in it and we don't have to worry about narcissism at all. Looking forward to that experience, to being in a world where lies are not so common and the truth is actually the more common thing. And I don't mean like the truth like the white truth. Like I don't mean the agreed upon truth. I don't mean the truth that everyone thinks is true. I cannot wait to live in a world where everyone knows the truth, like the truth. And there's no debate about it. And then anyone who tries to debate the truth with like a capital T, the truth, you jail. You are banned. You are banned from society. If you want to spread lies, you're banned. You want to spread misunderstandings, you're banned. Misinformation, you're banned. Anything without scientific proof or knowledge, jail. So I cannot wait until we move into that world, which is the direction we're going into. So, stay tuned. Might take us 100 years to get fully in it, but we're on the way, you guys. We're on the way. The age of Aquarius is here, and she is shooting knowledge into everyone's butts. So that is all. That is the way that we went from patriarchy to religion, and how religion gave birth to classism, and how classism gave birth to racism, and how racism gave birth to ableism, and how ableism gave birth to ageism, and how ageism slash humanity in general gave birth to, I will call it speciesism, is like our narcissistic thinking that we are the smartest, the best, and the most capable species on the planet, and that we're more valuable than other species on the planet, and that other species on the planet were born to be farmed and eaten by us. Like, y'all, once you realize that these are souls that are walking around and we're farming souls, it's the way that I am working on going vegetarian. I'm not even joking, y'all, because it's crazy. When you realize that we are eating other people, like essentially that we're eating people. We're eating other people. They're just coming this time as an animal, but like next time around, they're going to be an animal, a human too. And it's just like, and then we're making it's like the whole point of us as souls coming to this planet Earth to have this physical experience is so that we can enjoy ourselves. Like, life is supposed to be fun. Life is meant to be enjoyed. Have you ever heard that? Life is meant to be enjoyed, but we are not enjoying this life, and we are making this physical experience awful for other animals. And it's just like, that sucks. That sucks. Imagine being born just to be locked in a cage your entire life and then unalived in an awful and horrendous way. Like, that's what we're doing to animals. Like So yeah, and this is coming from someone who, and I wouldn't say I've never really been an avid meat eater. I've never been a big meat eater, so I think the transition will be a little hard, but I'm gonna work on it. But I enjoy meat. I do enjoy meat. And again, not to say that eating meat is wrong. I don't want to call it. It's not wrong because there are animals in nature who eat meat who are carnivorous, and I'm like, we have incisors, which means we were technically evolved to be able to eat meat. And so I don't want to say that, but again, this is really a different conversation for another day of what it means to eat meat and how that changes, like, not who you are, but yeah, I'm going too far, and y'all are not gonna know what I'm talking about. So, anywho's, thanks for coming. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed listening today, you will also enjoy my TikTok at Bri.Speaks. And then if you want to listen on YouTube and you're listening on Spotify, you can listen at Bri.Speaks on Spotify on YouTube. And then if you're on YouTube and you listen on Spotify, you can listen at Bri Speaks Podcast. If you want to support your girl and all of her adventures of self-discovery and helping the world wake up from the crap that we are dealing with, feel free to donate to Cash App. I got like 2 Cash App donations, you guys, and I'm like, make me want to cry. Make me want to cry, not gonna lie. So here, let me see my shout out and my thanks, because it's like I've never imagined in my life thinking that people would actually give me money for running my mouth. This is like, I don't have enough money to actually live off, but if once I get there, I will be living quite literally my dream. So I wanted to say thank you to Alio F or EJ, if you know who you are. You said thank you for your perspective, and you gave me a little brain emoji and a little book emoji, and I'm just like, thanks. And then there was a Trish who said, just a white girl that hears you loud and clear. And I thank you, Trish. And so those were my two donations. So Bri Speaks 2, the number 2 on Cash App. And then you can also buy my hoodie on ADHD.com. I have a few left. I'm really trying to get rid of them. So, you know what I'm gonna do? And as I'm thinking right now, I'm going to sell them for, if you're listening to this video and you get to the end, you can have it for $20. Mind you, I'm selling it at this point at a loss because I have a few left and I want to get rid of them. And they are from when I was doing more ADHD specific content. They say free to ADHD because I believe neurodivergent minds should be free to do whatever they want. And so if you are a neurodivergent mind, I'm gonna let you have it for $20. And when I say it will cost me more to make it than that, and it's super cozy. Like if you talk to anyone who gets this hoodie, like the fabric is just like, it's not so thick that it's uncomfortable, but the inside, it has a fleece lining on the inside, so it is just like wearing a hug. So if you want that hoodie, you can get it at free2adhd.com. Here I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so this is the hoodie. It says free to ADHD on it in all fun colors, and then on the back it says free to ADHD. Here, I don't know if you can hear me. And then on the back, it says free to ADHD. And then all the letters are composed of like a mosaic of different words, like free to procrastinate, or free to be lazy, or free to sleep in, or free to laugh, or free to love, or free to make mistakes. It's just like, it's a bunch of words. It was like, I remember it was like 222 words and phrases that I thought up that I felt like represented things that ADHDers should be free to do. So this is my hoodie. I don't wear it as much as I would like to, I guess, because it's black. And as you can probably see from like my pink sparkly eyelashes and my pink dress, I'm a very just bright person in general. And so I bought my first products in black because I was like, it's a universal color. Everyone likes black. But I'm like, I maybe should have made a hoodie for myself. And then that would have been a better target audience, is maybe myself. But I was just like, I was trying to do something more broad reaching. Everyone likes black, but I'm just like, if I was making it for a neurodivergent person, neurodivergent people, not to say they don't like black, but we're usually like a really bright kind of like person in general. So the next like when I start making Bri Speaks merch, and I will be making Bri Speaks merch because people have been saying like I've been saying some things that need to be on t-shirts. Like one of my favorite ones, like today, I said ignorance should not breed fear, ignorance should breed curiosity. I said that, and then someone was just like, oh, like, and I'm just like, yeah, no, like, because it is this known, like not known, but like this accepted fact that if you don't know something, you're automatically going to be scared of it. And I'm just like, that's a narcissistic point of view. Is like, you should fear the things you don't know. That is a narcissistic point of view, because when you think about like history and white people, when they landed on the Northern American soil, the Native Americans were like, hey, how's it going, weird pale people? How can I help you? Whenever they finally made it down to Africa, Black people were like, hello, pale people, strange, but hey, how can I help you? When they made it to Haiti, the people on the island of, at the time, I don't know if the Europeans called it Hispaniola or if it was called, probably not. I think the Europeans, that's a European name. But anyways, what is now known as Haiti, when they got there, the natives were like, hey, how's it going? Australia, hey, how's it going? Asia, hey, how's it going? Or like China, or everyone was like, hey, how's it going, weird pale people? And then the weird pale people was just like, murder, destruction, genocide, disease, slaughter, slaughter, slaughter. Like, because I'm afraid, because I don't know who you are. Like, everyone else was just like, hey, like, this is like, they just approach the situation with curiosity. Everyone else approached with curiosity, and only white people or narcissistic people approach with fear. They live their lives in fear. They live their lives like, oh my God, I'm so afraid. So anyways, all that to say, I've got some good phrases that I want to start putting on merch, but I don't want to start a new merch line until I get rid of my old merch line. So if you could help me get rid of it, I would really, really appreciate it. And so for my YouTube community and my Spotify community specifically, I will put up a purchasing code so that you can have this lovely hoodie for, I think I said $20. I got to do 30. I got to think about shipping. Well, I think it makes you pay for shipping. And so $20, I'm gonna say $25 plus shipping and handling. And again, this cost me $30 to make, and I was selling it at a much higher price point at first because, again, can you see it? You can't. I don't know if you can you see how fleece that is? I don't know if you can see it, if you can tell, but like the outside is one flavor, and then the inside is like a, you can't tell how fuzzy this is. You can kind of tell, but it's like, it is so soft in here. That's all I can say. It's so soft in here. And so I want everyone to have a soft, cozy hoodie. One of my friends, well, she's not my friend, but like, I guess a customer. I don't want to call her a customer, but she was one of the people who follow me on the interwebs. She bought it and she said she wore it for 5 days straight. And I'll never forget that, because she said it's now her favorite comfort clothing. Like, it's like, even if you don't want to wear it outside, because I can get how, I don't know, how you wouldn't want everyone, like, sometimes you don't want everyone to know you have ADHD, even though I'm really trying to get rid of that stigma, because it's a silly stigma. Even though, I need to hang up the phone, y'all. I'm just like, ADHD is neurodivergence, but it's neurodivergence when the standard is neurotypical, and neurotypical is defined as the way white people think. So I don't even like the distinction that ADHD people have a pathology or have something wrong. It's something that needs to be fixed, something that needs to be changed into something else. I think we just have a naturally different way of thinking. Like, and again, it's not even different. It's like everyone has a different way of thinking. Like, some people think linearly, some people think across time, some people think from a system level, some people think from a detailed level, some people think like in structures, like some people think in like an organization, some people think in a disorganized or a more sporadic fact. Like, it's just like, people think differently, but all of those different ways of thinking are needed to make a cohesive and functioning society that works in the best way possible. Like, diversity is always a good thing. It is always a good thing. It's only not a good thing when you have narcissists sprinkled in. Because they feel like there needs to be a hierarchy if someone needs to be above and below, and so they will take differences and then rank order them, and then segregate and separate, and so that people will then turn against each other. But when you have a bunch of people who have different perspectives that they're bringing, but all of those perspectives are equally important, everyone's like, cool, now let me see, what's your perspective? Oh my God, and what's your perspective? And oh my God, what's your perspective? It's just like, you get excited to learn different stuff when you have people with different experiences. It's like, if we're all here on this earth to have a physical experience as a human being, wouldn't it be exciting to just learn about other people's experiences? Like, oh my God, you came down to earth and you did what? Oh my, wow, that's so cool. Well, here's what I did while I was on earth. And it's not like a mine is better than yours. It's, we're sharing our experiences, because the whole point of being alive is to have good experiences and then be able to share those good experiences with other people. But, here we are. The code will be podcast, because that means you came from the podcast and not from TikTok. And this is where I want to build my community and my platform, is through my podcast, because one, TikTok doesn't pay you any money. Not that I'm getting paid from YouTube or Spotify. I'm not at this point, but I hope to be one day. And to my understanding, you get paid better on YouTube than you do on TikTok. TikTok, they pay you what their astic is. So anyways, that is all. Thank you for coming. I hope to see you next time, where I do plan to talk about, what will I talk about? Why having multiple gods was a good thing. That is the next little thing I have here. If I do that next, great. If I don't, I'm sorry, I told you in advance and I didn't do it. If you made it all the way to the end, proud of you. Please put an upside down triangle in the chat so I can see your username and say shout out to you, queen or king, because your girl was rapping today. She was rapping today. So if you want to put an upside down triangle, which represents the feminine, which represents the collective over top of the minority, which represents all the empathetic people on top of the small amount of narcissists who are now currently controlling the world, put an upside down inverted triangle in the comment section below if you made it this far. And go type podcast, all lowercase letters, in order to get your $20 to $25 hoodie. Whatever I put the price at is probably $25. Sorry. But you got $25. Crowdfunding. Help out your friend, because I quit my corporate America job because I hated it, and now I'm poor. Now, well, I'm poor as a mindset. Now I'm broke. And that's okay, because I enjoy now what I do. Thanks for coming, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.